Hi everyone. This is maybe the second to last or the last sculpt video for this Minotaur project. In this video the goal is that we prep the model for sculpting and get into the sculpting phase. I'm still not feeling well at the time of this recording, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can. I don't have the legs done yet, but let's assume that they're there. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to go around to all of the individual body parts and I need to apply the subsurf modifier. So I'm going to start with the arms. I'm going to come over here to the modifier panel, add modifier, subdivision surface. You'll see that increases the geometry and also rounds it and kind of smooths it. Now in this process, if you realize something is off after you apply the subsurf modifier, you could go in and you can make some changes. So for instance, you'll see that the chest basically got a little smaller when I did subsurf, and that's because it's pulling in and it's smoothing. So I could tab into edit mode, and I could box select, and I could go ahead and grab a couple vertices and grab them and move them, and that would still work. I could also just scale the whole thing up a little bit so everything's intact. There we go. Okay, and last but not least, the head. Alright, there we go. And oops, sorry, the horns. There we go. Okay, so you have to remember that when the subsurf modifier goes on, everything does sort of shrink a little bit. And that's because it's being smoothed and rounded. That's okay. You can always add on more clay. Okay, so now that we've done the subsurf modifier on all the body parts, sorry if you can hear my dog in the background, he's eating right now. What we need to do is we need to add a modifier, an add-on. So the add-on is called Sculpt Tools UI, and for the students in my class, that will be on Schoology, so you can just go to Schoology and download it. So the add-on is in Schoology, and if you go to the Blender Sculpt add-ons folder, you'll see that there's this guy right here. So you would click on that. Now right mouse click, save link as, and you should go and save it to your desktop. Okay, good. Okay, so how to install that add-on. You're going to come up here to File, User Preferences. You're going to click on Add-ons, and this time you're going to choose Install Add-on from File down here in the bottom middle. You'll then go navigate to where the add-on got saved. Hopefully it's on your desktop, so over here on the left click on Desktop. It could be in your Downloads folder if you didn't do it to your desktop. So here's the desktop. Here's the zip file right here. Install add-on from File. Okay, so now here's the one that you want. And so to install it, you have to click on the little checkbox to enable it, and then you want to click on Save User Settings so that it stays enabled. Okay, so what that did was over here on the left-hand side, it gave us a Sculpt tab. Drag this out. Now we're not going to need to use all of these features. There's some really great features here, but we only need to use a few. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is all of the mods we need to apply. So let me just save before I do this. So if we click on Apply Mods, let's see, whoops, I've got to select all my objects first. Okay, so there's all my objects. Press A, and now if I click on Apply Mods, so what it did was that one click basically did apply to the mirror modifier and the subsurface modifier in all objects. So it's just a big time saver. Because now you can see if I select an object here, it has no modifier on it. Select the head, no modifier on it. Okay, so all the mods are applied. You have to have all your mods applied before you go into Sculpt mode. Okay, next what we're going to do is we need to join the objects together so they're completely one. So we're going to do this with a move called the union move or union tool. So what we do is we're going to go ahead and select one object. Right now I'm selecting the head, and you're going to shift right click and select another object. I'll go ahead and join these two together, and you can see where the horns are actually going inside, so they're intersecting the head. So now that we have two objects selected, this button over here that says union becomes available. So if I click on union, you'll see that now what Blender did was Blender trimmed off the inside that used to be inside there. So it got rid of the scraps, basically. Okay, good. Now we need to continue, so select the head, select the torso, union, then select the arm, union. Okay, and that is pretty much it. Now what you can do if you want to be extra safe is we could do a file save as. And the reason why this is actually a pretty good idea, I'll just call mine demo 2. The reason why is because my first Minotaur model that I opened up had all the modifiers and everything intact. If I realized in a half an hour from now that I made a mistake and I did all this joining together and union stuff too early, I really can't go back. So it takes 4 seconds to do a file save as and give it a different name, and that way you have 2 copies. Because once you apply those modifiers and the unions, those are permanent. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We're ready for sculpting. I'm going to pause the video for a second, and then I'll come back and we'll set up this whole workspace for our sculpting session. Okay, back, and we're going to go ahead and set up your workspace for your sculpt session. So this is all personal preference, the sculpt session setup, but these are some pretty good sound bits of advice. So I could leave it like this. I definitely do recommend you having multiple windows. So I could actually leave it just like this. That way this is my main sculpting view, and then I've got these other 2 references over here. If you would like to get rid of the image in the background, just put your mouse pointer in the first window, press N, scroll down to the very bottom where you see where it says background images, and you can just uncheck that right there, and then that will get rid of it. You'll notice that the background image is still over here in this little one here, so you can do the exact same thing. N, scroll all the way down, uncheck, and there it is. Okay, so now a couple little visual things that I like to do when sculpting. First of all, I'm going to press Z, and I'm going to go ahead and get into solid mode. Z, solid mode, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to press N one more time, and this time under N I'm going to choose let's see, I think I'm going to get rid of the grid floor. So down here under display I'm going to uncheck grid floor, so I don't really need that. And you'll see that I still have my X and Y axes, which is great. If you want to get rid of those, you can click on these 2 little XY buttons here and keep that on, or keep those off. Okay, next I'm going to go here to shading, category of shading, and I'm going to click here. Let's see, and I'm going to choose matte cap, and I'm going to choose ambient occlusion and turn that on. And so that gives us this really, cool kind of dynamic lighting going on here. Okay, and I can choose under matte cap, I can choose whichever clay style I want. This is kind of the clay style that I prefer the most. Looks most like traditional red clay. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah. So I can press N here. Now I have to, you can see that these other two windows here don't have all of those settings. I don't want to have to go through all of those other settings 2 more times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join these windows together and then I'll split it again. It's just faster. So I'm going to join these 2 windows together. So I'm going to put my mouse pointer on the black divider line. When it turns to a double arrow, I'll right click, I'll choose join area, and then I'll choose one and left click. I'll do the same thing again. Black line, right mouse click, join area, and this time I'm going to make sure the arrow goes to the right so that way I don't lose the red clay guy. Okay, so now that I've got that there, awesome. Now I want to go ahead and split this. So I'm going to come up here to the top. When I see the double arrow, I'm going to right click. This time I'm going to choose split area, and I'll go ahead and just put it right about here. Okay, good. I'll put my mouse pointer over here and press T so I get rid of that toolbar. And then I want a horizontal split, so I'm going to put my mouse pointer on the black line, double right arrow, right mouse click, split area, and there we go. Okay, so I think maybe in this one I'll do a front view, and in this one maybe a side view. Might change that as time goes on, but there we are. Okay. Okay, so before we get to sculpting, I noticed something was a little off and funky, and I don't know if you guys noticed it either, but if you notice the head and the horns, they look nice. They're evenly lit, but the torso and the arms are kind of sort of all dark and sort of a funky shadow. So while I was taking a little pause there, I did a little investigating to figure out what was going on. I won't explain it in this video, but for those of you that know about flipped normals, that's what happened to the torso and the arms. For my students, I will explain what flipped normals are in class. We're going to try a quick fix here. So with your whole object selected, if you have this funky shading effect going on, if you press Control N, oops, not Control N, sorry. Sorry, I'm forgetting a hotkey. Okay, back. Sorry about that. Okay, so to fix that weird shading effect, we have to tab into edit mode. Let me get rid of that blue stuff. Okay, we're going to select all, and then we're going to press Control N. N as in number. And you can see that the lighting and the shading changed. We go back to object mode, and now you can see it looks much better. Okay. Alright, now we can go ahead and save. Our object is ready for sculpting. We can press tab. We can get into sculpt mode. Go back up here to tools. The settings that I recommend from class is that you come down here and you turn on Dyne Topo, which is dynamic topology. And then under Dyne Topo, when you open it up, I suggest you change relative detail to constant detail. And then the resolution 3 is too low. So to start You want to start with a lower number and then work your way up, because this setting determines how much geometry is going to be there. So I'm gonna probably recommend maybe start with 14. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Here's the good old clay strips brush. And now what I would do for your first bit of sculpting is go through and just make sure that you can go through and get rid of the seams. So I just pressed F and I made my brush size a little bit bigger. And now I'm going through here with Addon Topo, and I'm just going all the way around, adding some extra clay, just brushing over the whole body. But right now what I'm really focusing on is adding in clay to get rid of those seams, and then I'll hold down Shift and I'll do some smoothing. And you can see that's joining everything together. In these early days, you can go ahead and make your brush bigger because you are covering the whole creature. Be careful that you don't fall into the trap of just brushing over and like doing a scribble effect. You don't want that. You always want to still follow the shape and the contour of the subject. Remember, you can hold down the Control key to do the exact opposite of whatever the brush does, so that will, dig in or do something else. There we go. So we're just kind of joining through here. We're sort of doing like welding. Okay, so people in my class, we've done sculpting in class before, so you kind of know how this rest of this goes. You just want to go through here and go all the way around. It's like you're adding a nice little sheet of clay, and what that's doing is it's dividing up the faces and giving you more faces to work with, giving you more clay to work with in a nutshell. If you feel like it's not giving you enough geometry, giving you enough clay, because you can see what it's doing to the horn there. I certainly don't want it to squish the horn. It looks like it is doing that. You can go ahead and you can up the Addon Topo, so maybe I'll bump that up to 20 now. There we go. And I might need to use something like the inflate brush. Yeah, the horns are pretty low detail, so to do the horns properly, I just bumped the resolution up to 30. There we go, that's looking better now. Now the horn's starting to thicken up a little bit. Remember that you also have your strength of your brush, and that is done with the hotkey Shift F. Okay, so I'm just going to puff this out a little bit. A little smoothing. And back to clay strips. Okay, so I bumped up the resolution to 30, and now the horns look pretty good. Okay, so now the Minotaur's here. Okay, so now I'm just going in and I'm just doing some clay strips, adding in more geometry, and you can see kind of going through here. Do some smoothing. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and call this video done. We've made it to the sculpt phase, and we got some pretty decent results going so far. All right, I will see you in the next video. Thank you.